Section 5. The Great Depression and the Global Economy. Introduction. By 1928, world trade had become heavily dependent on American finance. In that year, Wall Street experienced the great bull market as the price of shares rose to unrealistic heights. Then, on 28 October 1929, the stock market crashed. American capital for investment dried up, leading to a rapid worldwide collapse of industrial confidence. Thus, the world plunged into an economic depression that was so severe and so great that it has become known as the Great Depression. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to explain the causes of the Great Depression of the 1930s, discuss the spread and impact of the Depression on global economies, describe the New Deal of Franklin Delano Roosevelt as a panacea to the problem. Causes of the Great Depression. Arising from the World War by the middle of the 1920s, some semblance of economic normality had returned and most countries seemed on the way to economic recovery. Industrial productivity had returned to pre-war levels as businesses impacted greatly on the damages the war inflicted on industries, transportation, and equipment. However, this prosperity was short-lived as many serious problems and dislocations remained in the economy. Payment of war debt and Great Depression. It will be recalled that after the First World War, the economic recovery of Europe was tied to a tangled financial system that involved war debts among the Allies, reparations paid by Germany and Austria, and the flow of U.S. funds to Europe. Crash in the capital stock of the USA. Although depressed state of agriculture, overproduction, and falling prices played vital roles in the depressed economy, the major cause of the Depression was a crash in the stock of the USA in 1929. Prior to this period, it will be recalled that the United States enjoyed a boom after the Great War. Impact of Depression on economies. In the wake of this financial chaos came a drastic decrease in business activity, wages, and employment. Consumer demand no longer sufficed to purchase all the goods that businesses produced, and when businesses realized that they could not sell their inventories, they responded with cutbacks in production and additional layoffs. With so many people unemployed, demand plummeted further, causing more business failures and soaring unemployment. In the 1930s, the slump deepened, and by 1932, industrial production had fallen to half of its 1929 level. Most societies experienced economic difficulties throughout the 1930s. U.S. investors, shaken by the collapse of stock prices, tried to raise money by calling in loans as they became due. Banking houses in Austria and Germany became vulnerable to collapse because they had been major recipients of U.S. loans. Germany did not escape the ravages of the Depression. In fact, the Great Depression destroyed the international financial and commercial network of the capitalist economies. In response, most countries around the world tried economic nationalism, which further worsened the situation. Panacea to the Great Depression. The Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal. In America, the parties divided over their political response to the problems. The Republicans, favoring a traditional laissez-faire approach, were defeated in the 1932 elections by a Democratic Party led by Franklin Roosevelt. He instituted a New Deal based on substantial public investment, the showpiece of which was the publicly owned Tennessee Authority, designed to provide industrial infrastructure for one of the country's poorest regions. Besides, His proposal for dealing with the national calamity included legislation designed to prevent the collapse of the banking system, to provide jobs and farm subsidies, to give workers the right to organize and bargain collectively, to guarantee minimum wages, and to provide social security in old age. This program of sweeping economic and social reforms was called the New Deal. Its fundamental premise that the federal government was justified in intervening represented a major shift in U.S. government policy and started a new trend towards social reform legislation that continued long after the Depression years. Study section summary. In this study session, you learned that 1. Payment of heavy reparations made countries like Germany and Austria to be heavily indebted to USA. 2. Depressed agriculture, overproduction, and falling prices dislocated the economies of the world. 3. The major cause of the Great Depression was the crash in the stock market of the USA. 4. The Great Depression spread to other parts of the world and impacted negatively on the global economies. 5. Franklin Delano Roosevelt provided solution to the problem with the New Deal program. This is the end of Studies Section 5. Thanks for listening.